Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Alien abductions, alien abduction, alien abduction. Entities. See also alien-human hybrids. See also contactees general. See also contactees specific true and false. Betty and Barney Hill. See also extraterrestrials general. Contact Report 002.
Already often, beings from foreign races have come to your Earth and have undertaken their expeditions here. They collected various things that could be of service to their investigations. And it will also happen again and again that such beings will come here and pursue their studies. They come from the most diverse worlds and systems. They are often still new in the field of travel in outer space, and therefore carry out expeditions to expand their knowledge and cognizance. Thereby, it can happen that they unintentionally come into contact with the Earth humans, only to, in such a case, never come back again. They do not crave power and the like, as they are glad that they finally have serenity and order in their own worlds. With them, it can also happen that every now and then they take some Earth humans, bring them into their beam ships, and examine them very closely with their apparatuses and determine their anatomy most exactly. However, they let these human beings go again without exception, as they do not want to harm them. They are often more humane beings than the Earth human. But unfortunately, rather barbaric beings also travel outer space and come to Earth every now and then. Many among them are power-hungry and evil. With them, it can happen that they kidnap and abduct Earth humans, also other planetary human beings of other systems, and bring them to their home planets. There, these poor creatures then lead lives as exhibition and experiment objects. The Earth human and all other inhabitants of other worlds must beware of these creatures, for in their maliciousness, they often use the worst form of Gewalt. Feelings and other human traits and impulsations are often foreign to them, so a life means nothing of value to them.
Contact Report 031.
Then several of the UFOs observed around the world are not UFOs at all, but simply terrestrial flying discs.
That is so, yes. Often they are also forced to make emergency landings because their constructions, devices, and apparatus are still very inadequate. If distressed ships of this kind are approached by observers, by which I mean that they go near them, then they are often frightened by the occupants or even abducted and deported in order to ensure their absolute silence. Such occurrences are unfortunately not uncommon on the Earth, but through the ignorance of human beings and various unreal enlightenment-striving groups, they are invariably attributed to extraterrestrial life forms. In truth, there are probably also malignant intelligences from outer space that haunt your Earth or stray there, but there are not so many of them that they would be of great significance. Most observations of flying discs with human predations are of terrestrial origin. Earth humans should be aware of this when they encounter any flying discs, whose occupants are well aware of the fact that very many human beings believe these objects to be of extraterrestrial origin. In addition to these evil life forms, there are also extraterrestrials who abduct Earth humans from time to time, which Sim Ya-se has also told you about. However, these cases are relatively so rare that they are hardly worth mentioning, although the abductees usually never return to the Earth. But here again there are exceptions that are extremely rare and hardly worth mentioning. Most of the time, the abductors are time and space aberrations who only arrive to the Earth through their ignorance, through technical damage, or through irrationality. On the other hand, However, there are also some inhumane races to whom Earth, when they discover it, means a welcome expedition planet where they rob life forms of various kinds. But this is just as rare that it should not really be mentioned.
And what do you do about it?
These are not matters we are allowed to interfere in. That is, we must not do this by force. If possible, in such cases, we try to get in touch with these intelligences through our communication devices in order to stop them from doing what they are doing by educating them. Often, therefore, we pursue them far out into space if they refuse to be instructed on Earth itself or in its vicinity. Unfortunately, however, we are only partially successful, so that Earth humans can be abducted in spite of everything in just extremely rare cases, which are hardly worth mentioning. I have already said that we must not intervene with violence in such incidents, although we would be able to do so in every respect. We must keep to this order, and this because, on the one hand, every life form must go its ways of development, and we must not interfere with it in this respect if the abductions do not involve members of our own race or members of other life forms associated with us. On the other hand, violence exerted by us would generate violence again, which could lead to a galactic or intergalactic war. However, we must not provoke this also for directive reasons, because our weapons are in any case always intended only for defense, but never for attack.
Contact Report 033.
The object which appeared yesterday and the day before yesterday was the same that you had already photographed on the evening of the 20th of April. This, however, was not a beamship, as you assumed, but a small spaceship. It also did not belong to us, but to other and rather unfriendly intelligences. These intelligences are striving to bring the planet Earth and its humanity under their sovereignty. For this, they make use of very unfair means and do not even shy away from human abductions. They are one of those groups which operate with the earthly religions and which successfully profit from it as unenlightened Earth humans get into connection with them and become religiously influenced. Missiled by these intrigues, the deceived contact persons then work unconsciously for the evil purposes of these troublemakers, and step by step, they slowly bring them closer toward their goal. Namely, the goal means the domination of the Earth and of the Earth humans, which these intelligences have already been working towards for thousands of years. Unfortunately, the deceived ones often come out of their silence and spread the religion-induced misguidances that these ill-intentioned liars have given to them. And they achieve great success through this, as you already well enough know, because the Earth human is exceptionally strongly trapped in unreal religious paths.
That is known to me, but what does this have to do with these birds? To which group do they belong? Are they perhaps members of the pyramid moles?
If you mean the Giza intelligences, then I confirm it.
Contact Report 034.
But you had in the past mentioned that humans are also kidnapped by aliens in the Bermuda Triangle.
Sure, but it is as rare as it is on all the rest of the Earth. For those abductions, mainly the Giza intelligences are predominant, together with time travelers and other elements of the universe. However, these incidents are truly very rare and count for less than 0.02% of all abduction cases on the Earth.
Contact Report 064.
In their lack of understanding, and in their ignorance, the erroneously lead ones seek fantastic explanations in technological, paranormal, and purely intellectual areas, whereby the most impossible hypotheses are presented, and indeed also in the form that we are angels and God's messengers, or that we come in evil and world-conquering, as well as with Earth-human abduction, intentions, etc., which of course all corresponds to evil nonsense. In the main, These erroneously lead ones deal with purely sectarian and esoteric parapsychological deficiencies, as well as with the technical possibilities and construction methods of our ships, whereas they completely disregard our important task itself and the associated values and have no idea of it. This is typical for the human being of the earth, because he or she always reaches only for the material and completely overlooks the fundamental values, namely the spiritual and consciousness-based ones, about which he or she then makes up unbelievable fantasies and even claims that jet ships and spaceships, etc., are driven by spiritual forces and that they are also built according to spiritual models, etc. This is as malicious a misleading claim as the one that we were moving in paranormal realms. The greatest nonsense in this direction is created by those circles, which they call parapsychology circles, etc., which deal with those things and concerns which are incomprehensible to them and which are not understood in the least. And it is precisely these circles that do the most malicious and misleading subversive activities in order to hinder and prevent the finding of the truth, which is only surpassed by those who are supposedly engaged in the purely material form of semi-scientific and fully scientific investigation of the possible existence of our flying machines and ourselves. But their actions are only a delusion, because in reality they are possessed by illogicalness and are still trapped in very material, earthly, and misleading forms of thinking, whereby they are unable to gain any knowledge and accuse anything and everything incomprehensible to them as lies and deception, whereby they feel very great and feel a megalomaniac satisfaction in themselves.
Contact Report 066.
Furthermore, I have to inform you that recently more and more extraterrestrial intelligences are sending robot and android-manned ships to the Earth in order to be expeditionally active here. This has been the case for many years now, but this activity is currently being greatly increased, and Earth humans are often used as experimental and test objects.
Contact Report 219.
Moreover, these Syrian renegades and black men, as we also call them, and these have nothing to do with the so-called men in black, who are of earthly origin, and thus who are Secret Service-driven Earth humans, who strive to induce real visions and hallucinations through apparatus-driven, suggestive impulses in Earth humans who are susceptible to these. Their repertoire ranges from fake sightings and observations, as well as alleged abductions, up to simulated contacts and sexual intercourse with extraterrestrials, from which alleged pregnancies occur that, if they already appear, are caused quite normally with an earthly partner or by artificial manipulation of a medical nature or one's own nature. Also through these extraterrestrial black men, the illusion is produced in susceptible Earth humans that somehow, through carelessness, etc., things penetrated into their body unnoticed, such as the incidence of metal fragments or small projectiles, implants of extraterrestrial forces and beings, which is absurd, of course.
Contact Report 230.
However, just say, what do you think about more and more people claiming that they have been kidnapped by extraterrestrials? Women claim that they were pregnant by extraterrestrials, and then later the procreated children were extracted from them and brought to a foreign world. Others, also men, claim that they were abducted by extraterrestrials and medically examined or provided with implants.
In 99.09 cases, this is a senseless imagination, as our latest investigations have shown.
That is also my assumption. If all the nonsense about contacts with extraterrestrials regarding abductions and examinations by extraterrestrials, etc., worldwide and especially in North, Central, and South America were to correspond to the correctness, then the Earth would be teeming with extraterrestrials. In fact, one would then only have to encounter extraterrestrials every step of the way. As I see things, it is, as a rule, a matter of notorious imaginations that lead to beliefs and delusions, whereby exceptions, as you say, amount to just about 0.01 cases per 10,000. The origin of these imaginations can be manifold, such as, for example, religious or sectarian belief, anxiety, gullibility, influencings by lies and fantasy stories of liars, swindlers, and charlatans or jokers, etc., and so forth. And once notorious imaginations have arisen in the human being through thoughts and feelings, then these have such a mighty effect on the psyche and the consciousness that a mania emerges, from which in turn a delusion develops in the shortest time. Once this has developed, then the same happens as with notorious lying, namely that no distinction can any more be made between lying and truth. In the case of the notorious illusion, which, to my knowledge, is still unknown to our earthly psychologists and psychiatrists, and does not make sense to them either, it is no longer possible to distinguish between illusion and reality. Just as the notorious liar considers his lies to be effective truth and reality, so also the one who is in the grip of a notorious illusion sees his illusions as effective truth and reality. The ability to distinguish is destroyed. In this state, the person affected by the delusion of imagination no longer recognizes the reality, because also his or her content of memory had been built up delusionally by the manic illusion. And the fact that the whole is also transferred to the subconscious and manifests itself from there again into the consciousness is only the end result of it all. Therefore, it is also no longer surprising that even through a process of hypnosis, only the delusion of imagination is expressed and reflected. For through the hypnosis, the fixed delusion of imagination is mobilized, whereby the hypnotized person does not reveal the effective truth, but only the facts of the delusion of imagination, in which everything is regarded as truth and reality. But there is even more that happens in this delusion, namely that the persons ill with the delusion of imagination, because that is whom we are dealing with, also imagine things such as marks of wounds and burns in such a delusional way that these actually form on the body or on the limbs, and these can even hurt. We are talking here about a visually and organically observable form of psychosomatics and psychosomatosis, which can ultimately even lead to acute psychoneurosis and thus to psychogenic disorders, such as, for example, compulsive neurosis, depressive neurosis, and anxiety neurosis. In some cases, even a somatoform disorder, that is to say a personality disorder, may occur.
Contact Report 231.
There are many irresponsible freeloaders who make big deals and immense profits with the UFO believers because they are cheated and financially exploited by the liars. Swindlers as well as charlatans. This is how many people appear who knowingly and fraudulently claim to be in direct or telepathic contact with extraterrestrials, believing that the innocent are in full swindle. On the other hand, your truthful contacts with us are vehemently denied by know-it-alls and opponents, enviers, autocrats, image addicts, sectarians, etc., and you are portrayed as a liar and a fraud, despite all the irrefutable evidence you can produce. Evidence that no alleged contact person can produce. But all this will intensify in the time to come, with the UFO believers running after all the contact swindlers without hesitation, courting them and going astray. Increasingly, many will claim through lies and deceit that they are in personal or telepathic contact with Sim Yase, with Ptah, with me, or with others of our races, as well as with higher spirit forms of our planes, in personal or telepathic as well as channeling contact. But everything will only be lies, deceit and dizziness, because no human being on the earth apart from you will be able to come into any kind of contact with us, just as we will only be able to come into contact with you, for which you know the reasons. Nevertheless, in the next few years, a contactee psychosis will spread across the earth, as well as a true extraterrestrial delusion and a kidnapping delusion by extraterrestrials, will appear in relation to belief in all imaginable and unimaginable extraterrestrials. Thereby, through the extraterrestrial fairy tale, will create a financial violent business that will far exceed the previous one and will be coupled with esotericism and parapsychology. This will benefit the secret plans of the countries which are doing their mischief with the flying discs, which is why they are very diligent in their machinations, which they then ascribe to aliens through their information channels, for example, certain machinations with crop circles, animal massacres and alleged abductions and harm, etc., by alleged aliens, in which all sorts of pretenses are made by hypnosis, and even foreign bodies are implanted in the abducted, etc. Thus, all possible and impossible aliens are invented, so that the secret plans and machinations can be carried out unchallenged, whereby, however, also the fear of aliens is stirred up and driven up. So it is a fact that since 1945, when the plans of the air disc technology fell into the hands of the Americans, Russians and English, with few exceptions, the whole earthly mankind is lied to and deceived, and to it every means is right, also alleged activities of extraterrestrials. And all those fools, irresponsible, criminals, deceivers, liars and swindlers, etc., in matters of alleged contacts with extraterrestrials, spirits, dead and higher beings are co-responsible for the fact that the secret machinations can be promoted in relation to the flying discs, because with their lies and deceits, they promote everything still.
Contact Report 246.
Also, the so-called little grays play a very important role, which allegedly in the USA, about 3 million people are said to have insisted, impregnated, and maltreated with operation scars and painting, etc.,
which of course is sheer nonsense and has no reality at all.
My question refers once more to alleged contacts of human beings of Earth with extraterrestrials, whereby the specific is directed at claims which in my opinion sound quite ridiculous. Apart from the approximately 3 million human beings who were in America allegedly harmed by extraterrestrials and subjected to all kinds of tests, whereby many women supposedly developed pregnancies and the little grays allegedly then stole the hybrid children after the birth. The kidnapped and harmed human beings of Earth would after the tests have often suffered from pain and complained about operation scars and burn marks, etc.
This, of course, does not correspond to the truth, but to an unbelievable nonsense, which fanatical or otherwise incapable UFO and ghost believers only too gladly want to recognize as real truth and believe in it rock solidly, although not a word of the whole dizziness corresponds to the truth, which is well consciously invented and controlled by certain organs for deception and scaremongering in order to achieve certain goals. In addition to these organs and persons, however, there are still many UFO fantasts, who are mostly burdened by sectarianism, who themselves care for their bodies by teaching themselves wounds and burns, etc., by implanting crystals or pieces of metal into their flesh and letting everything scar in order to then claim that they have been kidnapped and persecuted by extraterrestrials, of which the scars and burns, etc., would testify. Incompetent hypnotists, who then subject such persons to so-called truth hypnoses, then claim that the information given in hypnosis by the hypnotized would unfailingly correspond to the truth, because hypnosis could not lie. However, it is never taken into account that a person in a hypnotic state can tell and pronounce the worst lies just as untraceably as is the case with the so-called technical lie detectors, without the specialists being able to recognize the lies because the technical devices of this kind on Earth are still so imperfect that they can be outwitted with simple and man's own means. There is still to explain that many UFO fantasts and the like on their bodies use existing old scars, marks, and other things actually also to claim that these signs would originate from embarrassments, tests and operations of extraterrestrials, by which they were kidnapped, etc. It is often precisely those elements that spread such stories in public in a lying, fraudulent or dizzying and charlatanic manner that are to blame for the fact that these scams, deceptions, lies, and charlatanies are spreading more and more in Europe. Their number in Europe, especially in Germany, is constantly growing. And unintelligently, the televisions and Stalten are still reaching out their hands to these swindlers, liars, swindlers, and charlatans, etc., by dedicating their programs to them, through which the unbelievable nonsense of the fantasts, the imagined and the insane, etc., can be heard, which will be broadcast to all countries, which will misinform and misorient the spectators, and which in turn will create new phantoms, liars, deceivers, charlatans, sectarians, delusionists, and so on. Journals also contribute to this, such as the magazine you sent me and many others of the same kind, thousands of which are produced and distributed all over the world, read by misguided and faith-dependent people and taken as hard cash. And if you follow all these things, then you will find their origin in America. The delusional faith of the believers, which also includes the UFO fantasts, UFO sick, UFO fanatics, ghost believers, and crop circle believers, as well as all other believers, fanatics and sick who believe in unreal things, in no way allows them to accept even an icing on the cake of the actual truth. They all want to be deceived because they are not stable and not mature enough to take their lives into their own hands. Truthfully, they seek the entire responsibility in higher levels, with a God, with angels and saints, as well as with spirits and extraterrestrials, etc., to whom they are so firmly attached in faith that any attempt to explain the truth to them is almost hopeless.
Contact Report 249.
When Earth humans are lifted into extraterrestrial flying apparatuses and examined by extraterrestrial human intelligences for examination purposes, you do not call these processes actual contacts, but rather investigation contacts. Together with Hans, I have coined the term examination contact in this context. Could this term be used?
This terminology is actually very good. Examination contact. This term also removes the sting from untruth that terrestrial humans would be kidnapped by alien beings. The truth is that the Earth foreigners, the extra-humanoids, see nothing wrong and above all no abduction in their examination contacts, but only a humane means to an end, in order to carry out incidental studies from which new knowledge, etc., is gained.
But now back again to the alleged abductions of Earthlings by extraterrestrials. Especially in America and South America, and recently also in Germany, such assertions occur again and again, whereby various attempts have been made to prove the truth of the statements by hypnosis. If the assertions were correct, then already more than 3.5 million Earth people would have been examination contacted, and many women, particularly Americans and South Americans, would have been impregnated. It is even absurdly claimed that children have already been born from such impregnations, half earthly, half extraterrestrial, called hybrids.
Everything corresponds to unbelievable nonsense. First, there have been very few incidents of examination contacts for years, and second, there have been no impregnations of Earth women by extraterrestrial intelligences. The so-called hybrids, reported by unreasonable newspaper and journal makers, are nothing more than abortions and mutations of a purely terrestrial nature, which are due to genetic damage, etc., caused by the parents or by environmental influences of a highly harmful nature, which can be very diverse. There is no doubt that at present there are no descendants on Earth or anywhere else on Earth who have been conceived by extraterrestrials with Earth women or by meerkats with extraterrestrial women. Other claims correspond to infamous lies and slander, no matter whether they come from Elizabeth Clarer or from some other lunatics who currently claim this. Even such assertions made under hypnosis usually correspond only to lies and slander, which are either invented by the hypnotized themselves or are tricked in by third parties or even by the person who carries out the hypnosis. In complete contrast to the assertion that people under hypnosis would not lie and cheat and thus always tell the truth, there is the fact that under hypnosis one can lie and cheat just as in the normal state without hypnosis. And exactly this fact is exploited by many in the matter of UFOs and alleged kidnappings, etc. Because the persons concerned want to make themselves great and distinguish themselves with it. Often, only a hypnotic state is faked, which is not difficult for humans and cannot be determined and recognized by the inexperienced hypnotists of the earth. In this state of pretense, people lie and cheat, just as they do in real hypnosis.
The three groups that fly in and out of the earthly space besides you once had real contacts to Earth people?
No.
But did they have any examination contacts?
That only applies to their two groups.
Contact Report 251.
We were just talking about those who had played an important role up to that point, namely the three groups that we had discussed in one of our last conversations. In addition to these, there are a few other groups of extraterrestrial origin that fly to Earth and can be observed here more often, but none of which is in contact with any Earth humans, neither on a private nor on a military or governmental basis. Some of them come to Earth purely for excursions or expeditions. Others have other interests, but none in the way that the hysterical Americans portray this, with the impregnation of Earth women by Earth alien intelligences, or the impregnation of Earth alien women by men of Earth. The nonsense about massacring animals, etc., can also be forgotten, for such things do not apply either.
Contact Report 257. The nasty machinations of the government, military and Secret Service people in respect of the demonizing of extraterrestrials have increased ever more since 1938, indeed slowly and successively. Thus, however, all the more incessantly and expansively, until in the 80s. Essentially, the greatest machination for the bedevilment of extraterrestrials began through a shifty structure in the fashion of the Secret Service, as well as miscellaneous UFO and extraterrestrial enemies. Stories came about like the ghastly human and animal mutilations, the theft of human babies, and the impregnating of terrestrial women through foreign visitors out of outer space. Horror stories were also disseminated about subterranean laboratories and the inhuman experiments taking place there. Were that still not enough? Because the angst of the extraterrestrials wreaked even worse blooms. Like, for example, it would be asserted that women impregnated by aliens would, after some months, have the baby growing in the womb snatched out to be allowed to finally grow further in a fluid-filled incubator, etc., in order to breed up a new humanity, etc., using these hybrid children. A further horror story was that the Earth humans would be abducted in order to take their genetic material that would be necessary for the extraterrestrials' further breeding of humans, who would serve as, so to say, nourishment providers because the evil foreigners out of the depths of outer space supposedly nourished themselves on human blood. Similarly, it would also be asserted in respect to the animal mutilations in America, whereby the related far-fetched feeble-mindedness, that namely beef blood demonstrates a genetic relationship with human blood. Therefore the mutilated cattle would have their blood sucked out to store in the blood banks for crisis times, naturally through the evil extraterrestrials. Yet even that is not enough, because still many other assertions, slanderings and lies, and clearly to be recognized as feeble-minded, are put about, through which the humans are led into error, and would be shifted into angst and terror. As has had manifold success, and certain mass hysteria has been released by a worldwide group of certain Earth humans, which also leads to feelings of hate, etc. Contact Report 264.
But do you know to what extent other extraterrestrials maintain contact with Earth humans? I mean with normal citizens and so on.
Mostly, once in a while, from time to time unwanted contacts with Earth humans arise, or then very rarely examination contacts are carried out, which are about examinations and tests, etc. But I have explained this to you before. We do not know of any continuous contacts between extraterrestrials and Earth humans, but they could still exist under certain circumstances, which, however, is unlikely.
Contact Report 358.
Regarding the luminous objects that light up, seem to hang in the air, seem to divide into several objects, move away from each other, approach each other again and merge again, the following can be explained. All the observers and witnesses of such sightings are deceived, because they are in no way extraterrestrial flying apparatuses or UFOs, as terrestrial people call the objects, which can be seen especially in many places in the USA and all over the world. The secret machinations of the responsible authorities and offices in the U.S. America are responsible for these appearances of these light objects, but this is to remain secret, not only for the American, but for the whole world population. To the secret machinations in this regard belong also still various others, which are to point out actions of extraterrestrials, like for example the alleged kidnappings of Earth people, as well as the massacring of cattle, etc., by alleged extraterrestrial beings. The fact that hypnosis is also used for allegedly affected people, as it was the case with the fraudulent moon landing in 1969, should be absolutely clear for every reasonable person.
Contact Report 386.
The electromagnetic vibrations from electronic devices as well as strong earth magnetic vibrations are indeed really not harmless, because hallucinations, aggression, depression, low morale and discord, indeed also the phenomena of ghostly apparitions, can even be provoked which have no connection with acute or stored mental vibrations. Respectively, fluidal powers, rather, are based, as a rule, on fantasies and imaginations, which are normally simply caused by states of angst. The basis for this can really be very strong electromagnetism, for example, by way of electronic devices, and so forth, or it can simply arise as a result of a strong magnetic field of the Earth. Extremely low-pitched sounds from electronic devices and other things as well as from nature, which cannot be perceived by the human ear, so-called infrasound, can cause strong vibrations in the case of objects and with the human body and all its organs, such as, for instance, also in the eyes. The consequences of that are hallucinations and panic attacks, as well as depression, discord, and negative moral states, because the thoughts and feelings as well as the consciousness succumb to confusion as a result of the vibrations. In the said form, there is a connection among infrasound, electromagnetism, and ghostly apparitions. Infrasound and electromagnetism can trigger the internal attack and escape mechanism of the human being, as well as panic attacks and hallucinations, and so forth. And it is especially the case if one is in a spooky or weird-looking place, in a depressed mood or in a mystical situation, and so forth. That which is decisive in this regard is that the sense of the human beings is under great tension, whereby he perceives the environment and his situation, and so forth, as a threat. In this state, then ghostly apparitions can be seen or strange, ghostly sounds can be heard, or unreal touches can be felt, and so forth. Strong electromagnetic fields have effects on the human body and its organs, which therefore also includes the brain and consciousness, as well as the thoughts, emotions, and the psyche, which lead to hallucinations, whereby the human being sees, hears, and feels things which are not real. Electromagnetism and infrasound produce an effect on the human brain in such a way that, for example, the feeling is created that someone strange is present, a ghost, and so forth, because he cannot be seen, or can be dimly seen as a result of the imagination. Faces and figures can also be seen, and sounds as well as unreal breathing, and so forth can be heard, or in the same way, unreal touches can be felt. Thereby the human being can become increasingly insecure and anxious, because the activity of fantasy and the imagination increases and everything is considered absolutely real, as for example in a similar manner to the way human beings appear who believe that they have been abducted and examined, or impregnated by extraterrestrials, and later have their fetuses stolen, which, in regard to pregnancy, naturally only applies to women. With all of these human beings, fantasy and the imagination, so to speak, go mad, whereby everything is of such a strong nature that the fantasy images and the imagination appear absolutely real, all caused by infrasound or by strong electromagnetic fields. And human beings who succumb to this consider everything to be real, and believe that it is truthful reality in such a way that consequently, even polygraphs and interviews under hypnosis can be withstood.
Contact Report 400.
Lie stories, as they have been and continue to be spread all over the world regarding alleged alien contacts and alleged alien abductions,
which unfortunately many humans of the earth consider to be reality and truth without hesitation,
while denouncing effective reality and truth as lies and deceit.
That is unfortunately the reality, which is why you are slandered and insulted, because they banish the truth about your contacts with us into the realm of deceit and lies, while they elevate all swindlers, liars, and cheats of both sexes and let them lead you astray.
This cannot be changed because, as the saying goes, the world wants to be cheated and lied to. The truth therefore counts for nothing, but only lies, deceit, charlatanry, and forgery. But let us leave that alone, because talking about it is useless. Every human must reach the truth himself through his own reason and through his own intellect.
Contact Report 401.
I am frequently asked, especially from the US and Mexico, about the sporadic appearance of small white objects at high altitude in the sky. I have also been sent a video showing such objects, white, round things that appear like small moving clouds that often change their position and sometimes seem to merge into each other, but then separate again. There are hundreds of such things at a time. To me it looks as if they are small cloud-like formations, which, as with larger similar phenomena in relation to earthquake lights, are caused by natural phenomena, such as gas concentrations, and by Earth electromagnetic oscillations and energies, which are then mistaken for UFOs in the sense that they are extraterrestrial jet ships or flying machines. Also, the earthquake lights are interpreted again and again as UFOs of extraterrestrial origin, because they often have forms which look like any futuristic flying objects. These often shining electromagnetic objects also have the property, as you have explained to me, that hallucinations are caused in some humans, which are often based on the fact that some humans consider everything to be real. Very often such hallucinations lead to illusory experiences in such a way that the hallucinators see themselves as abducted by aliens, especially with regard to small gray males with big almond-shaped eyes, etc. False memory images are created by the brain, which feign something experienced without actually happening. A phenomenon that also occurs in such humans in a state of hypnosis. As you once explained, in the hypnotic state, stories and experiences are created in the brain that seem completely real, but are not real, and therefore never happened. If I remember correctly, these hallucinations are triggered in the cranial and temporal lobes. So it follows that the alleged abductions of terrestrials by extraterrestrials are based on pure hallucinations, as well as all the associated stories of alleged medical examinations, impregnations, robbery of the fetus, of strange time gaps, the local displacement of the allegedly affected, the switching off of lights and car engines, etc. Of the hundreds and thousands of allegedly abducted humans all over the world, with the USA leading the way, the truth is that only 2 authentic cases in the last 240 years can be mentioned, as you recently explained to me in a purely private conversation. Even the fairy tales of alleged implants, etc., are based on hallucinations, or on events in which the person concerned has unnoticed in some way a foreign body, metal or plastic, etc., has penetrated the body or limbs. It is not uncommon for there to be several such foreign bodies. Even mass observations of alleged extraterrestrial missiles can be based on hallucinations caused by Earth electromagnetic oscillations and their energies, especially if strange nebulous or cloud-like formations are connected with them, which are caused by ionizations in the atmosphere.
Although we talked about it before, but apparently I misunderstood you regarding the objects in Mexico and explained that I had no answer to that. But now I know what your question is about, which I can only answer in the sense that you just explained it. And what you're going to say is actually based on our findings as we conveyed them to you. Unfortunately, this will not change the fact that all those who believe in the absurdities of alleged abductions by extraterrestrials and in everything allegedly connected with them will not be lectured. In this regard, any instruction in relation to reality is usually just as meaningless as it is in relation to crop circles, belief in ghosts, all esotericism, religious sectarianism, the false teachings of religions, and everything that has to do with occultism and hallucinations, imaginations, and delusions of any kind from the human brain.
Contact Report 424.
What has to be said in respect to the married couple Hill, Betty and Barney Hill, and all other persons who were allegedly abducted or even medically harmed, or who supposedly had implants implanted, and who under hypnosis exposed these occurrences is that these occurrences have never happened and are nothing but illusions, imagination, delusions and deliberate lies, as well as also schizophrenic illusionary products and disturbances of consciousness brought forth through the interference of electromagnetic fields of the earth, through which unrealities, unreal happenings, as well as unreal memories and unreal experiences are caused, but also unreal pain, fear, and unreal perceptions, and so forth. The disrupted electromagnetic fields of the earth have been the cause of the untrue memories of the Hills. All these factors will become or could be knowingly or unknowingly manipulated, which means that the hypnotized describe their unreal happenings and unrealities, etc., as reality, or that liars and deceivers are able to maintain their deliberate lies and deceit under hypnosis. Hypnosis, namely, is in no means capable of finding out the truth in such or other cases. All of the things which we previously assumed to be true through such circumstances, such as contacts between Earth humans and Earth foreigners, as well as abductions by Earth foreigners, have proved to be false up to the early times of the last and penultimate centuries through the possibility of our newest technology with regard to the clarification of such occurrences. As we did not master this extremely valuable technology in former times, we unfortunately have been led astray in regard to all these matters. Because of this, and also of the lies and deception of many of Earth's human beings in regard to the aforementioned, we have unfortunately let ourselves be deceived in respect to alleged contacts between human beings of Earth and beings foreign to Earth, but also in regard to alleged abductions and examination contacts, etc.
Contact Report 441.
Around 22 years have now passed since you and Quetzal told me privately that you had comprehensive cognitions in regard to terrestrial UFOs and the massacre of animals and alleged abductions which were disguised as the shoddy efforts of extraterrestrials. You said thereby that, in regard to this, involved in these machinations are governments, the military, as well as industrial businesses and powerful ones of finance, which constitute a special group, to which still smaller groups are also related. At that time, you promised that you would officially explain more about that when the time is ripe for that. Can one now speak publicly about that?
With the named group, it concerns a worldwide branching from governments, the military, industrial groups, secret services, paramilitary, and powerful ones of finance, as you correctly said. Those in the know and contributors are only certain elements of the same, who profit greatly, financially and power politically, from their secret machinations, for which reason the entire powers of the government, military, and industrial, as well as finance, are not involved in the situation and are also not informed in regard to this. The group is not organized as such, rather is only a loose collection, whereby their interests, however, have a common form, which, already since the 1920s, was designed to operate a continuous, ingenious, large-scale disinformation campaign regarding the question of extraterrestrial life. The group, which is split into many small groups, has many kinds of technical possibilities at their disposal, which they employ for their evil and human misleading purposes. That started with technologies of electromagnetism to do with precision electronics and computer engineering, up to and including apparatuses through which brainwashing and the programming and altering of consciousness is evoked in humans. They even have back-engineered beam ships at their disposal, whereby, in certain contexts, even anti-gravity finds application. It has also occurred many times that premeditated abductions of Earth humans by extraterrestrials and the massacre of animals has been and is faked by this group. That stands partly also in connection with those illusionary and schizophrenic visions and apparent experiences of those who believe that they have had or have these kinds of real experiences. Also, wrong information and falsified pictures of alleged extraterrestrial flying devices is strategically circulated worldwide, whereby, according to our investigations, about 98% of all false pictures, films, videos, and false information is directed at moving the Earth humans to angst and terror of extraterrestrials and to engender hate and thoughts of revenge in the Earth humans. Therefore, in this way, angst, terror, and hate is stirred up against all life foreign to Earth. Especially films for cinema and television serve this purpose, as also, however, do many books which are constructed on lies and untruths and are written partly by experts in psychology and psychiatry. All this nonsense sells very well to the Earth humans because many on the search for the effective truth trust and believe this false information and these films and pictures. Angst, horror, terror, hate, and revenge always sell well, while the truth appears too banal and therefore appears uninteresting as well as not worth knowing. Only the fantastic and unreal find a place in the interests of Earth humans. 35. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, the entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, the entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. The entire war, electronics and weapons industries and so forth, thereby gain an enormous boost. Yet, in the worldwide group, secret paramilitary units also exist as smaller groups which carry out the same kind of operations which, however, are mostly controlled by the worldwide group. In particular, these small groups carry out premeditated abductions which are credited ostensibly to the extraterrestrials, as well as, however, also simulated appearances of alleged extraterrestrial flying craft, which are then collectively declared to be extraterrestrial UFO appearances and are often observed, photographed, and filmed by many people. Thereby the illusion of an ostensible extraterrestrial abduction or observation of extraterrestrial flying devices is evoked. What is further to say about that is that in this worldwide group, with all the small groups who partly also work autonomously, there exists a proper UFO trade and a subculture in regard to animal massacres and abductions and so forth. The entire thing is secretively financed through governments, the military, industrial groups, and financially powerful ones who are interested in angst, terror, and hate being stirred up to their highest forms in regard to the alleged evil extraterrestrial foreigners, because they can thereby gain gigantic financial profit and advantage. It is on this basis that, in every regard, from this group, only stories, cinema and television films, and observations of UFOs will be accepted and profitably exploited, which are based on everything negative and, as is becoming proverbial with the Earth humans, on the malicious and aggressive nature of the extraterrestrials. Only that which evokes angst, fear, and terror as well as engenders hate and revenge is accepted by the group and exploited worldwide in order to obtain enormous profit with it. Conversely, in addition to that, everything which is good and positive is vehemently slandered and is designated as a swindle, lie, and deception, as is the case with you and us, since, in keeping with the interests of the group, we are not permitted to exist, and you are not permitted to be in contact with us. Rather, you must be a liar and a fraud. So, from the group and their small groups, the Earth humans will be served up deliberately false and fear-influencing stories in regard to extraterrestrial UFOs and foreigners to Earth and their alleged horrifying machinations like, for example, painful examination contacts and animal massacres along with falsified encounters with alleged extraterrestrials. Along with profit, the whole matter also serves deeply based psychological propaganda in order to insult forms of life who are foreign to Earth and to brand them as malicious beings and to create angst, hate, revenge, and hysteria, because great financial means will be thereby freed up, which serve research for the production of innovative and futuristic weapons of all kinds. Therefore, in these Earth humans, in regard to the extraterrestrial, an enemy will be psychologically, deliberately created which does not exist and which will, in a manner, be made into a malicious being such that the Earth humans, in their angst, will be driven to freeing up horrendous sums in order to therewith manufacture weapons against the alleged malicious invaders. Also, with these acts, various groups play off against each other, which, however, is part of a well-thought-out plan which is carried out and implemented by secret services, psychoterrorists, espionage groups, and treacherous disinformation agents, and which is underpinned by false information regarding UFOs and alleged extraterrestrials. Additionally, belonging to this plan is the invention of an imaginary extraterrestrial enemy, as well as a danger emerging from this, an enemy and a danger which, naturally, will have to be fought. The infamy is thereby that, first of all, everything is made ridiculous because the concerned abductees, examinees, chance contactees, and UFO observers can provide no evidence for their experiences which would withstand a real examination. Then comes the second fact, which exists in the fact that angst, terror, hate, and feelings of revenge is produced in the Earth humans, whereby then the weapons industry can be built up, and indeed especially in regard to futuristic weapons, of which the normal Earth humans have no idea, and of which they do not ever dare to dream. The entirety is thereby a well-thought-out psychological network on which the progress of the entire weapons industry and the power of the military, of the federal leadership, the finance sharks and the industry businesses, as well as the secret services, can be built up ever further. To this end, angst, terror, hysteria, hate, and revenge is sown in regard to all foreigners from outer space. So the Earth humans become duped and financially exploited by the responsible ones of this dangerous group and their small groups, and are deliberately driven to abhor and to hate the extraterrestrial foreigners. Corresponding cinema and television films serve as especially suitable means for that. The foreigner angst, respectively, alien angst, which is thereby produced, surpasses all normal angst, and the responsible ones of the group know that precisely, for which reason they can also thereby calculate that all necessary finances flow to them, which they require for their weapon research, their weapon manufacture, their leading of wars, and desires for power, as well as for unrealistic cinema and TV films which demonize the Earth strangers. The creation of a supposed threat from extraterrestrials as well as the alien angst is, for them, a profitable matter which is operated under the shabby cloak of a federal, respectively, country security, and of world peace. For the entire machinations of the group, the meanest machinations are quite good enough, which, as said, were already operating since the 1920s, and to that also belong highly developed electronic weapon systems, futuristic flying discs, Earth humans who are hypnotically and surgically converted, as well as converted in their consciousness, to robots, whereby some have an appearance like the being which is called the Little Gray. On one hand, there is the dim-witted paradox that the extraterrestrial flying devices are denied, and the strangers to Earth are made ridiculous or made out to be monsters by means of psychological propaganda, while, on the other hand, a financial exploitation of the peoples results through the inciting of angst, terror, hate, and revenge, and indeed thereby in that a simulation results in regard to a supposed threat from extraterrestrials. A paradox without compare, to which the question must be put: how far are the Earth humans imbued with reason and understanding that they do not recognize this paradox? The entire prearranged game of the group and their small groups, as already said elsewhere, also includes faked encounters with alleged extraterrestrials, whereby these are truly nothing other than normal Earth humans or those who have been transformed into aliens. In order, then, to affirm the improvised encounters, with those foreign-to-Earth psychologists and other experts are pulled in into whom the wildest stories are hammered for so long until they believe the entire swindle and nonsense, and employ verifiable and genuine analyses which are recorded and published in books and documentation as well as in cinema and TV films. And since, as a rule, the supposed extraterrestrials are described as horrible villains, just according to the plan of the group and their small groups, the picture of the extraterrestrial threat is powerfully incited. Thereby, not only is the slandering in regard to the real strangers to Earth always more exaggerated, as also more and more finances flow into the cash box of those who stupidly and dim-wittedly earn as a result of the entire tissue of lies and slander, and thereby come by the means to reach their criminal goals. A certain part of the group has also fallen to a Christian sectarianism and to the supposed end times in such a way that hope is directed at a malicious invasion of extraterrestrials resulting on Earth, and thereby the prophesied Armageddon will become reality, in which Jesus Christ celebrates his official return, and God the Father will exercise his judgment. Their delusion is therefore bound with a biblical end of the world, which, as they believe, rests on the terrible badness of the earth humans. And in order to accelerate this divine judgment, as well as the return of Christ, they do everything in order to make the way free for that. The monstrous power of the worldwide group and their small groups, as well as the religious fanaticism, together with the cultic maintaining of the secret of the entire underhanded, degenerated and deceptive, as well as criminal and felonious machinations, lead to malignant effects which could not be worse. These are the facts which I have to name in regard to your question.
Contact Report 457.
The last event of the kind that my daughter has explained with regard to contacts of examination and real abductions of terrestrial human beings by Earth foreigners was more than 370 years ago. Note, see Contact Report 2.
Contact Report 589.
Recently, various television programs have been reporting on earlier UFO observations, and also on various strange UFO encounters. To my knowledge, at least as you told me earlier, all these observations and encounters are not connected with you Plearan in one single case.
We on Earth have never been involved in such observations and encounters since ancient times. However, we are well aware that incidents concerning observations and encounters have taken place in connection with Earth humans and unknown flying objects, or UFOs, as the common name is. But we only know this since we have had the opportunity to do so in the last 1.5 decades through the technology of the sonar. Before that, we were unfortunately deceived in many ways by many imaginative Earth humans, through lies and deception as well as charlatanism and also fun. Only with the technology of the sonar we were able to clarify that many Earth humans, who reported alleged observations and encounters or even alleged contacts with Earth foreigners, only told lies and charlatanism, as well as fraud with fake pictures and films. Others, on the other hand, invented alleged experiences and even inflicted strange little injuries on their bodies, which they described as marks and signs, etc., added to them by Earth foreigners. Many of these people were addicted to the desire for renown, as is also the case today, along with religious and sectarian motives and financial profit motives. But when Earth humans have observed flying objects or UFOs unknown to them, and encounters with such flying apparatus have taken place, and are still taking place around the world, then these refer today and in the future only to the 4 foreign groups, and in no way to us, the Plearan, or our federated ones.
Contact Report 710.
So I think that now, with regard to the presence of the Earth foreigners on Earth, it should be explained that through them really abductions and so on, and also other occurrences have taken place. You stated that the reports concerning human beings on Earth who had been abducted by extraterrestrials, as well as contacts with extraterrestrials here, the insertion was, as a rule, and with reservations, corresponded to lies, fraud, boasting, or sheer charlatanry. So your statements were effectively only relative, and as a rule, only to be understood with reservations, which means that in this sense, your statements and declarations were to be understood only within certain limits and from certain points of view. Consequently, on the one hand, They were only true and to be understood from a certain point of view, and were therefore limited in their validity and value. While on the other hand, through the as a rule and with reservation, the possibility and fact of the existence of Earth foreigners and Earth future ones, as well as abductions by them in relation to Earthlings, remain just as open as also possible contacts. So your explanations, statements, and declarations were formulated in such a way for the public and to be kept in writing by me and to be spread in the world, just without your mentioned additions, as a rule and under reserve, whereby the misunderstanding impression was awakened, and it seemed as if you would completely deny all abductions concerning Earthlings by extraterrestrials and any contacts with them. But this was not the case in reality, because you spoke of relatively and as a rule and with reservations, which I had to conceal for certain reasons and must also do now according to your instructions. On the one hand, the majority of the abduction and contact claims were really lies, frauds and swindles, etc., while on the other hand, a small part of the reports which became known concerning abductions by extraterrestrials were just as real and genuine, as you expressed this with as a rule and with reservations, but about which I had to remain silent. As a result of the reasoning, which I am also not allowed to give now according to your objection, the abductions by extraterrestrials and the few trivial contacts had to be denied and their reality excluded and questioned by a misunderstanding. Certain abductions of human beings from Earth for various purposes, and thus of course the corresponding contacts, which have taken place again and again since time immemorial, have always belonged to the behavior of the old Earth foreigners and Earth future, as well as to the newer ones who fly in and out of Earth and back again. But the fact is, in spite of abductions, etc., that none of these Earth foreigners and Earth foreigners have, up to the present time, conveyed any messages and the like to the Earthlings, precisely messages with regard to how they would have fallen, or would fall today, within the framework of the teaching of truth, teaching of the spirit, teaching of life, and thus within the sphere of the Nocademian and my mission.
Contact Report 724.
I have no precise knowledge of the abduction of Earthlings by extraterrestrials, nor do I know any people who have had such experiences. In this regard, however, the Plejarin explained that such events would probably have occurred due to the aliens functioning on Earth, but that they would not care about this at all. Basically, such abductions, if they actually take place, lead back to other intelligences, whereas the Plejarin have nothing to do with such abductions. The Plejarin themselves do not want to have anything to do with the strangers on Earth, as they call these other intelligences, and consequently they protect themselves against any sighting and locating of the strangers, because they do not want to enter into any contact with them under any circumstances, just as they do not want to enter into any contact with Earthlings.